Lately, I've been trying to understand something about myself, and the best word I've found for it is selective. Maybe there's a better word out there, and maybe there isn't. But selective is the closest thing I've found to describing how I experience people, relationships, time, and honestly, life itself. For a long time, I thought there was something wrong with me because of it. I thought I was selfish, uncaring. I thought I was broken. I thought the way I connected to people was wrong because it didn't seem to match what everyone else described. When people talked about wanting constant contact, I couldn't relate. When people talked about needing to talk every day, couldn't relate. When someone asked or talked about distance making them lose connection, I couldn't relate. And because I couldn't relate, I convinced myself that something about me needed to be fixed. So I spent years trying to become someone else. I fought against who I was. I fought against my need for space, my need for distance. I fought against my natural tendency to disappear into my own world. I used to fight against the word selective. And if I'm being honest, I think a lot of the word's part of me came from that fight against myself. Because when you spend years trying to be someone you're not, eventually something breaks. In my case, I became possessive, jealous. I became controlling without realizing it. I became someone who constantly needed reassurance. Someone who needed attention. Someone who wanted proof that people cared. And when I didn't get that, I reacted badly. You know, I've lied. I've manipulated situations. I've used and hurt people. I've pushed boundaries, neglected people. I disappeared without explanation, left people confused, left people wondering what they did wrong. And some of those things I was fully aware of. That's the hardest part to admit. Although not every mistake came from ignorance or what you want to call it, some came from fear, others insecurity, even selfishness. Some came from me knowing I was wrong and doing it anyway. I don't say that because I'm proud of it. I say it because I don't want to hide from it anymore. If I'm going to ask people to accept who I am now, then I need to acknowledge who I was before. I was a difficult person. I was a bad friend, a bad partner, and I've hurt people who didn't deserve it. That's the truth. But the more I sat with that in therapy and the more I forced myself to stop running from these things, the more I started to question why? Why did I keep doing these things? Why did I keep repeating the same mistakes? Why did I keep becoming someone I didn't even like? And honestly, I think I've finally started to understand. It may not make sense to you, but it does to me. Like I said, a lot of it came from fear. Fear of losing people. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of being forgotten. Fear that if I wasn't useful enough, available enough, entertaining enough, or caring, then eventually people would realize I wasn't worth staying for. So instead of accepting who I was, I tried to become whatever everyone else needed. If someone needed attention, I gave attention. If someone needed reassurance, I gave reassurance. If someone wanted me around, I forced myself to be around. If someone wanted a version of me that wasn't really me, I tried to become that version. I kept stretching myself further and further because I thought that's what caring meant. I thought relationship, friendship meant sacrificing parts of yourself. I thought love meant constantly proving your worth. I thought if I could just be enough for everyone at the same time, nobody would leave. But that isn't how people work. And it isn't how I work. The truth is, I was trying to keep too many versions of myself alive at once. I was trying to be what one person needed, then another, and what another one needed. And eventually I couldn't keep them separated anymore. Everything started bleeding together. The exhaustion built, the guilt, the resentment, the confusion, and eventually everything came crashing together. There were times I mixed people together when I shouldn't have. Times I crossed lines I shouldn't have crossed. Times I handled situations terribly because I was so focused on not losing people that I stopped paying attention to the damage I was causing. There were times I hurt people while desperately trying not to get hurt myself. None of that excuses what I did. Understanding where my behavior came from doesn't erase the consequences. The people I hurt were still hurt. The trust I damaged was still damaged. The mistakes I made were still mistakes. But for the first time in my life, I feel like I understand where they came from. And that matters. At least to me. Because if I understand where they came from, then maybe I can stop repeating them. And therapy has forced me to look at myself in ways I never wanted to. About that. It's forced me to sit with truths. And one of those truths is that I was spending so much energy trying to become what everyone else wanted, that I never stopped to ask what I really needed. One thing that stuck with me was what she said. There is no need. I asked what she meant. Well, there is no need to constantly prove I care. No need to constantly be available. No need to answer every message immediately. No need to sacrifice my own well-being just so nobody questions my feelings. No need to earn the right to be loved by exhausting myself. At first, that idea felt wrong, almost selfish, because my entire life I believed that caring meant proving it. Being there. Giving and showing up. And now I'm realizing that maybe that's not true. Maybe caring isn't measured by how exhausted you are. Maybe love isn't measured of how much of yourself you give away. Maybe friendship isn't measured by how available you make yourself. Maybe that's why I burned out so often, because I kept trying to be the kind of person I thought people wanted. And every single time I failed. I forced myself to engage. Forced myself to socialize, to stay connected, to be present. And then, eventually, I'd disappear anyway. Not because I didn't care, but because I was exhausted. Then I'd feel guilty, then I'd come back, and I'd do it all over again. Over and over for years. Until I started realizing something. I don't experience connection through constant presence. Not in the dramatic way of constantly needing it. I never have. I can go quiet and still care. I disappear and still care. I can spend months away from someone and still care. I admit I can pick up a conversation years later and still care. Distance doesn't erase people from me. It doesn't erase memories. It doesn't erase love. Distance doesn't erase connection to me. But I know that's not how everyone experiences that. And that's okay. Some people need consistency. Some people need frequent communication. Some need regular reassurance. Some need presence. And none of those things are wrong. And I think I've realized that none of those things are wrong, but neither am I. And I've struggled with that a lot. Because accepting that I'm selective also means accepting that some people won't like it. Some people won't understand. Some won't want it. And it scares me. It scares me because the old version of me would have done anything to avoid losing people. But that old version of me would have hidden it. Minimized it, apologized, promised to change, promised to be different, to be whoever someone needed me to be, even if it destroyed me. I can't do that anymore. Because that version of me hurt people. That version of me wasn't healthy. Wasn't honest. And if I'm truly trying to become a better person, then I have to stop building relationships any kind on promises I can't keep. Which means I need to be honest. I am selective. I don't always reach out. I don't always know what to say. I don't always stay present. I disappear. I need space. I vanish into my own life for a long period of time. And that's not something I'm willing to hate myself for anymore. I've spent enough years treating it like a flaw. I've spent years apologizing for existing the way I do. I've spent years trying to earn acceptance by becoming someone else. And what I'm about to, ask might be difficult. If you're listening to this and you know me, really know me. Can our bond survive that? Can it survive my absence? Can it survive the silence? Can it survive the distance? Me not always reaching out? Me being exactly who I am instead of who you wish I was? If the answer is yes, then I'm grateful, truly grateful. That means we're choosing each other honestly. No expectations, obligation, no guilt. But understanding. If the answer is no, then I need you to be honest about that too. If that honesty ends up meaning you leave, then you leave. Not because we hate each other, not because you failed me, not because I stopped caring. It's mainly because I don't want either of us trapped in something that constantly asks the other person to change. I don't want you waiting for me to become someone I'm not. And I don't want to spend my life pretending I'm someone I'm not. That's not healthy for either of us. So, if this version of me bothers you, if this truth is something you can't accept, then I think it's okay to walk away. It'll hurt. Of course it'll hurt. But I'd rather lose people because I was honest than keep them because I was pretending. Because for the first time in my life, I'm trying to be truthful about who I am. And whether people stay or leave because of that isn't something I can control. All I can do is tell the truth. The truth is simple. I care. I love. I value the people in my life. But I am selective. I've always been. And I'm done apologizing for it.